Folks, good Friday evening. It is the Earthmaster here on this Friday night, February 17th, 2023. It is about 10:04 p.m. here along the west coast in California, and latest earthquake activity shows a 2.5 into the area of Turkey. Definitely seen some earthquake activity ramping up around the globe today, including Fiji Islands area and also the west coast, and a deeper movement quake here north of the Japan region. Before we get into that, I do want to chat about, well, this massive solar flare that kind of popped off earlier this afternoon here. We're still kind of recovering from that. It's still flaring, actually. But it was an X2.2, the largest in this solar cycle 25, which began back in December of 2019. So this is a rather strong flare, and it was on the Earth side, Earth-facing side of the sun, not directly squared, lined up with the Earth. That would have been a little bit stronger of a storm here, but we are expecting a. It did blast off a CME. Let me show you guys real quick the CME that it blasted off here. A full halo CME. You can see some of that charged plasma headed towards the Earth direction, even though it was positioned way up here on the northeastern section of the sun. So, pretty strong flare, folks. We're expecting this to pop off. Maybe some further flaring as it continues to rotate into the Earth view further. Here's the latest imagery. As you can see listed up here. Still kind of bright, not quite as bright as when it was the Xflare category, but we're watching this magnetic structure here within that sunspot. I think it does harbor some potential for some stronger flaring as it continues to evolve. Look at that. There you go, folks. The strongest flare of this cycle so far, in X2.2. Now, this solar cycle is expected to continue to about the year 2030, with peak intensity right around 2025, June of 2025. They're expecting the peak of it. We're already way ahead of schedule in terms of the number of sunspots and the number of flares. So could be an interesting ride here with this solar cycle. We'll continue to watch that and see how it plays out. But you can see it was a long duration X flare with a subsequent CME. And we're just starting to scoot back down into the C flare category following that massive flare many hours ago. Haven't seen that in quite a while, let me tell you. So continue to watch this and see how that sunspot behaves. Now, the culprit is 3229, this massive sunspot region that we've been monitoring. Over the past couple days, we've kind of seen it peeking around here. Definitely noticed the structure of it. Definitely looked promising, and sure enough, it produced a pretty nice flare. We'll continue to watch this because it does harbor some further activity. I see it. There's a lot of intermixing there of the fields. These other sunspots, questionable. Not doesn't look like they harbor any major threat, but this guy up here, yes, we'll continue to watch that. 3229 once again is the one to watch here. 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 50% chance, and X flare around 15. Now you can't really predict these 100%, but you can look at the structure of these magnetic fields and pretty much do a forecast for that. And that's kind of what they're doing there. 15% probability of an X flare. These X flares can cause some issues here on Earth. If they are Earth directed, they do cause some high frequency and low frequency radio blackouts on the sunlit side of the Earth. But also, if there is a massive CME Earth directed, which is basically a release of plasma from the sun and charged particles, this can ultimately result in some geomagnetic storms, which is forecasted later, early next week. This G2 storm is not in relation to what went on today. This will ultimately change, I believe, in terms of the let me see here, in terms of this activity that we've seen today. So there is the confirmed CME listed here on the this little video here from the solar, the SOHO folks monitoring this activity. They recorded a lopsided halo emerging from the blast site, but we are expecting that to hit the Earth around the 20th. Looks like geomagnetic storms ranging from a G1 to a G3 class storm is possible after the CME arrives. Now this is not in relation to, this has nothing to do with the G2 storm we're expecting tonight. And we're still kind of waiting on that. I was watching the live real-time solar wind stream coming in, and I don't see it yet. We do have, an open window here probably over the next few hours or so for its arrival, but we would see the density regarding this G2 storm kind of pick up here, and obviously we would see the speed pick up as well, but I'm not seeing it. Everything's pretty stable, relatively stable, so we'll continue to watch that and see how this G2 storm plays out. The detailed forecast shows it on the February 18th UTC time. Now that's going to be right now, the 18th, February 18th, 2023, and we're just past that window of the 0 to 0600 UTC time that they're predicting. So it may be a little bit late, although I have seen the folks here predict this type of storm, and it completely misses this. So we'll have to see how this goes. But I don't think this other one misses us. I can see that massive CME even heading off from this perspective here. The brunt of it, obviously, over around the northeastern section of the sun. That would have been an incredible storm had that been directly at Earth. But we should get a glancing blow of it. So we'll see how it plays out. Now, the G3 storms can disrupt certain things. Power systems, voltage corrections may be required, false alarms triggered on some protection devices. Up into the space area, spacecraft can have issues as well, including drag amongst the low orbit satellites, and ultimately corrections may be needed for orientation problems. Intermittent satellite navigation and low frequency radio navigation problems may occur. High frequency radio may be intermittent, and aurora has been seen as low as Illinois and Oregon. So we'll see how that plays out. Now that is not for tonight. That is going to be around the 20th time frame from this massive X-class flare that kicked off earlier this afternoon, and it was a big one. Definitely a beautiful X-flare, the strongest of this solar cycle. And looking at the solar cycle 25 progression, now this red line here indicates the forecasted level in terms of the number of sunspots here, and we are way ahead of schedule. We're at 143. Actual predicted was 63, so we're double that, beyond double that. So this is going to be a very interesting solar cycle. It could be one that we haven't seen in quite a while. And the SFI, the Solar Flux Index chart, already way ahead. 182 predicted was 100, almost double in that department as well. So forecasted in the red line, actual data way ahead of schedule, folks. Let me tell you, it's going to be rather interesting here as we head into the next couple years. Again, a quick look at that sunspot. Look at that magnetic structure here. I still think we have possibility of seeing another strong flare very soon. All right, so what do we got for earthquake activity? Have we seen any major adjustments following this solar flare activity? Not really. A lot of times, we do look at the relation in terms of solar flares and earthquake activity, but I think if anything, CMEs, large CMEs, could affect the earthquake activity and whatnot here on this planet. Flares are almost instant in terms of radio blackouts because the flares send out a pretty much an instant type of deal up into the ionosphere, and it creates those radio blackouts there on the high and low frequency levels. But I think the CMEs themselves, the brunt of that system that comes days later, affects earthquake activity. So we'll see how this plays out in the coming days following the expected arrival of one tonight and also one around the 20th, that G2 or a G1 to G3 class storm from that Xflare that we've seen today. So we'll watch this here in the coming days, because right now I'm not seeing any major unusual uptick. We're looking at areas here around the Java Trench eastward and southward that have been showing activity even prior to all this activity on the sun. So can't really say it's 100% in relation to the sun activity, but we'll definitely see how it plays out. A little bit of activity early this morning, it looks like, around the Japan region and the Izu Trench. Some deeper movement quakes here into the area of the Izu Trench. One deep earthquake into the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench in our watch zone earlier this morning as well. What do we got? 143 kilometers for a 4.8. Looking down south here into the Papua New Guinea area, latest earthquake activity shows some movement across Indonesia and back building up along the Tonga Trench area. We did see some further deeper movement into the Tonga Trench today with a little bit of activity down there around 300 to 500 kilometers deep across this area of the plates, Pacific Plate. Far as the New Zealand area and the Kermadec Trench, we had one earthquake here around the Kermadec Islands from last night. Nothing showing up here across the USGS model, but I did see some activity. Well, most of this movement down south here looks older, but I definitely do want to check that real quick here from the GeoNet servers. And we'll see what's going on here. 9 minutes ago, 2.6 coming in. Quick glance here at the list of earthquakes across New Zealand. Nothing major. Quite a few deleted events. There's a 4.75 hours ago. Kermadec Trench, it looks like. 288 kilometers deep. Quick glance at the earthquake drums here. Doesn't show any major unrest. A couple small earthquakes, which are obviously expected across a major plate boundary, but overall no major movement going on down there. All right, what else we have up into Alaska? A little bit of activity here along the Aleutian Trench, and it looks like maybe a volcano up here starting to show some movement across this area. There's a couple different volcanoes that run in that area. Let me see here. Let's see if we got any notifications here in regards to the activity. Now, this is going to be at, let's see exactly where we're at here real quick. Not for sure the name of that specific volcano that runs in that region. I believe it's going to be right over here. Let's see here. It looks like that's it. Yeah, not going to pronounce that one because I'm definitely don't feel like slaughtering any words tonight. But that specific volcano is underneath a yellow color code, alert level advisory. Current activity. Let's see what we got here. There is a daily update here, actually a weekly update that was put out today. Earthquake activity continued over the past week with an uptick in seismic activity. Yesterday, no eruptive activity has been observed. That is the short notice there in regards to that earthquake activity. So we'll continue to monitor that. Remember that volcano had a little bit of swarming here last year, so things kind of picking up back out here. Also 4.3 into the Aleutian Trench, a deeper movement quake, 215 kilometers deep. Starting to see some deeper activity, so we may want to watch this area for some subsequent larger activity. And a little bit of activity across the Aleutian, across the Cook Inlet area, I should say, up into the Denali region. All right, West Coast activity, aside from this movement off the coast here of the Queen Charlotte Sound area, that's just shy of the northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone last night. Nothing showing up here. Before we go down into northern Cal, I want to check out what's going on here around Newberry Volcano, south of Bend, Oregon. Got a little bit of activity kicking up, including a 1.0, very shallow earthquake. And for that, let's go over here to the PNSN Tremor Network. By the way, 46 epicenters, Northern California. That's going to go hand in hand with some of the earthquake activity we've seen here over the last couple hours. Newberry Volcano. There's some of that activity occurring right within the Paulina Lake area. Nothing major, but it has been showing a little bit of seismic activity here recently. See what we got here from the 3-component station. It's a seismogram across the North Rim area. Oh, goodness. And I remember, yeah, this one's going to be overblown. And I don't know why, but we'll see if we can get some other stations in here. Just kind of curious to see what's going on. There we go. There's a little bit more viewable reading here, and it looks like it's pretty sensitive as far as the needle of information goes in this reading. I'm seeing a little bit of earthquake activity. Let's see here. Let me see if I can point that out to you. We'll try this BHN station, see if it is working or not. This one's a little bit overblown as well, but in the background of the static, so to speak, you can see a little bit of that smaller earthquake activity showing up here, but nothing of concern, at least according to my observations there on the map. All right, now the Cascadia, we did see a little bit of activity here off the Northern California coast here along the northern segment of the San Andreas Fault, and also down here at the extreme southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that has a lot to do with the tremor activity I just showed you here on the southern end of the Cascadia, pushing that plate underneath the North American area, adding up some further strain and stress upstream along this plate boundary. All right, Bay Area, what do we got here? I'd seen an earthquake come in here recently, a 2.4 near Morgan Hill. That is just off of the Calaveras Fault Zone, it looks like, 5.1 kilometers deep. Nothing major going on here across the Bay Area currently. Long Valley Supervolcano, pretty quiet. And we got Ridgecrest showing a little bit of activity. Southern California, yeah, a little spotty out there right now. Not a whole lot going on across the area of SoCal. Yellowstone National Park. A couple earthquakes being reported here. Let me see what we got on the seismographs. There is some of that seismic activity here over the last couple hours and earlier this morning as well. Nothing major, but you know, a little bit of seismic activity to look at there on that graph today. Rest of the country. Texas, very typical down there in the oil fields. 3.1, Fairmont, Oklahoma, just outside of Enid. And I'm pretty certain that there's some oil fields out here as well. Quick glance at the satellite view. What is that? Is that a cloud? Huh. Or dust in the air? That's kind of odd. Let's see. Well, it's kind of hard to tell what these are out here. It looks like maybe some type of pond, wastewater pond. But it's hard to say exactly. I'm not seeing any mentioning of... Well, there's gas and oil fields just up north here, looks like. So either way, 3.1 coming in earlier this afternoon, and some movement out here in what just happened there, South Carolina, outside of Columbia and the Jefferson area. Looks like they had a 2.4 and a 1.9 within the last 24 hours. I know this area out here around Elgin has seen some swarming in the past, but it's been a while since we've seen a little bit of activity out here. So a little bit of uptick today. Nothing major going on, but shaking things up a little bit out there along the eastern portion of the country. 4.4 last hour, just off the coast of Mexico, 10 kilometers deep at the northern end of the Middle America Trench. Over here around the Puerto Rico area, got one earthquake outside the Puerto Rico Trench from this morning. Most of the activity since then has been confined to the swarming area of the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico. And looking at the South America region, I'm only seeing one earthquake there, but I want to just double check. Not a whole lot. Some smaller quakes, but overall seismic activity at the minimal down there into the South America region. So we got to watch some of these deeper movement quakes here. They are pointing towards potentially some adjustment up here around the Pacific Plate, and that includes our major watch zone, such as the Curl-Kamchatka Trench. Hasn't seen any major activity in quite a while. Let's see, Mediterranean looks pretty calm and clear. A little bit of activity out here around the Canary Islands, it looks like. A couple ones and some small twos. And, yeah. I think that's about it for earthquake activity. Way up north here, don't really see too much activity out here on the Camden Bay faults. 3.5, 20 kilometers deep. But on that note, we'll continue to watch space weather activity here, folks. This is the model that got put out here from the Space Weather Prediction Center in regards to tonight's activity. This will be adjusted accordingly around the 20th time frame of this month, which could include a little bit further south here along this line of the probability of seeing the auroras here in the States. Obviously, Canada, Alaska have a good shot once that CME comes in tonight. We're still expecting it. Who knows when it's going to happen? It could be coming late, or potentially it could have missed us altogether. Hopefully that's not the case, but we will continue to report on it. And again, a look at the live data here. I'm not seeing any signs of its arrival or passage, or even a glancing blow anywhere. Everything's fairly stable amongst the BT-BZ component. Density is very low, speed as well. So we'll wait for that arrival of the CME tonight, and of course report back on the activity from today's Xflare. But don't let your guard down. I think we're going to see a little bit more activity. This is a bright flare region up here, and it's I think it's got a potential to see some stronger flaring. All right, folks, I think that's about it. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. If you're I don't know, it's Friday night. It's a little late. I was going to barbecue out here tonight, but decided not to. I'm probably going to do that tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. A little bit chilly out here, 38 degrees. No rain in the forecast yet, but hopefully that will change very soon, and we need some more rainfall. All right, folks, have a good night. Stay safe out there. We will chat you guys sometime tomorrow.